Hi, welcome to Warrior Commission Now, where we talk about practical ways to live out your commission with the Lord. I'm Christine Casten.
And I'm Sharon Rudolph.
And Sharon and I are going to be covering a topic of seems like forever, because sometimes in the process of our growth, when we have these words or this understanding that God is bringing this amazing thing into our lives or opening these doors, and then we're like, the crickets are just chirping. You're like, when is that going to happen? So we just wanted to talk a little bit about that process of time and hopefully encourage you in this space and in this conversation. So Sharon, do you want to talk a little bit more about what seems like forever and why it's worth the wait?
Yeah, if you read the Bible, there are all these stories and nothing was instant. Jesus did a few miracles that were listed as instant, but for the most part, it was a walking out, 40 years in the desert, 80 years in exile. There was 400 years between the last prophet and when Jesus was born.
Now, we're not saying it's going to be that long for you.
Right. But God does long term, and God is in it for the long haul. And Jesus did make us a promise that he's never going to leave us and he's never going to forsake us. So I really think when we find ourselves in, okay, this is taking a while, and we're realizing that maybe this isn't going to come as quickly as I thought. I think it's an actual blessing, because then we can settle back and go, okay, God, you show me the how. You help me understand. And prepare me. There's obviously preparation going on here, and you give him permission. There's so much about giving permission. So, Christine, what have you learned about this is taking forever? Because you have a few of those stories.
Forever. I have prophetic words that have come to pass very quickly. And I have some that are still out there, that I've known about for a while. And the Lord has not seen fit to bring them to pass at this moment in time. But I was talking to a friend of mine, a guy named Craig Ferris. He's an incredibly accurate prophetic person. And he and I were talking about, the delay, right? And one of the things he said I thought was so good, because it really put a different spin on it. Because a lot of times we're like, God, when are you going to release this? When are you going to release this? And what he said is, sometimes it's actually for our protection, because we're not ready for the battleground yet. We're not ready for what that looks like to step into in our character growth, in our maturing, in our skill development and preparation. But with the understanding of that word or that direction, we do step into preparation if we're wise. We step into preparation. So that word about you're going to write books. Well, if you've never written a paragraph in a journal, you've got probably some practice. You've got some things to learn. There's a lot that goes into book publishing. There's a lot that goes into writing that many pages and holding a reader's attention. So there are things that we can step into in the process along the way. And that's what I've learned, is to really embrace each step of the process and to be intentional with preparing for what's to come based on what we understand, rather than wanting that thing to happen, immediately. Really know, okay, God, I will embrace and lean into what it takes to see that thing fulfilled. And at the time he chooses to fulfill it, then I'm ready in season and out.
Right. And that makes a huge difference. A verse that I go to when I'm waiting for something is Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. Even if the fig tree does not blossom and there is no fruit on the vines, if the yield of the olive fails and the fields produce no food, even if the flock disappears, right, while you're waiting from the fold, and there's no cattle in the stall, yet I will triumph in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. And sometimes it's good to remind ourselves that he's there, because we can get busy and we can get distracted and not, okay, God said this is coming. God gave me a promise. God gave me something to hope for. And we can get just distracted by life. And it's good to have reminders to go back. Oh, okay, Papa, what's going on now? What do you want me to know? Those sorts of questions. And so how do you keep yourself from being distracted, Christine? What does that look like?
Well, I can't say I'm able to do that 100% of the time, just to be honest. But, but I think that part of it is staying connected to the words, not letting them just, a lot of times people are like, oh, I've got this word, I'm going to throw it back here on the back burner. And, and if it happens, great, kind of thing. And it's kind of like, it's up to God, I don't have any part in that, and it's kind of this laissez-faire kind of attitude. But for me, I like to revisit the prophetic words. I like to really, stewardship is a big piece of the prophetic. And when God gives us something, when he goes to the trouble to impart a word to us, whether it's directly in our time with him or through another person, that he just moved heaven and earth so that we have that information and we can prepare for it. So some of it is staying familiar with it throughout the time of the wait. Some of it is remembering, when you get distracted and get discouraged, it's remembering, like Jesus, we talked about this. Jesus knew, from the time he was born, what his call was, what his commission was, why he was born, why he became, flesh. But he waited 30 years to truly step into his ministry. Right. So in that time, it wasn't that he needed to have this divine revelation. He had that. Right. But maybe he needed to live among people. Maybe he needed to learn how to love people in a different way. Maybe there were things that were part of his connection process to, I've been betrayed. I know what it's like to have friends. I know what it's like to have difficult times. I know what it's like to move. He moved to Egypt, moved out of Egypt. So there's a lot of things in his life journey that I think helped him connect and have compassion to grow in favor with God and man. It says that Jesus is in favor with both, but you have to have an ability to connect and build relationships in that space as well. So I think that there's things with his life story. He modeled for us, what it is to truly walk with God and to live on this earth and to bring heaven to earth, obviously, and to have a relationship with God in that process. And he spent 30 years developing that. Yeah. And I love that you bring that up, because the story that comes to mind is everyone's going to Passover in Jerusalem, and Jesus's brothers are going, why aren't you going to Jerusalem? And Jesus says, it's not my time. It's not my time to go to Jerusalem with you guys, right? He ended up going, but he went a different way, because he said, I only do what the Father's doing. I only say what the Father's saying. And you brought up Habakkuk 2, verse 3, for the vision is yet for the appointed time. It hurries towards the goal, and it will not fail. Though it delays, wait for it. For it will certainly come. It will not delay long. Yeah. And we get to let God decide what long is, right? Yeah, exactly. But there's something about embracing the waiting. Yeah. And I know we're kind of running a little long, but there was one more thing I thought about too, is that sometimes it's not just about us. Sometimes the way God wants to bring those things to pass has to also do with connections to other people. and
Right.
the timing for those paths to cross, if you will, for those people to be ready, for them to have established whatever needs to be established so that when that connection is made, it's the right time.
It's
And
the right.
so, sometimes I used to be in a music ministry time, and we always used to say, well, is it about you or it's not about you, kind of thing, when people kind of start getting all about themselves. And it was a little bit, it was a little bit direct, but at the same time, it would remind us, hey, there's a bigger picture here that we don't always see or understand. And that is, I think that's something to keep in mind as well. God is moving. He's never in a place of not moving on our behalf, and bringing things to pass. I call him the great multitasker because he's always multitasking. So just, just to encourage you, it may seem like forever, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening in this time and in this place.
So if you would like to be a part of a community that knows how to wait, knows how to embrace God's timing, you might want to check out the Warrior Commission. Our website, thewarriorcommission.com, has some good information about who we are and how we partner with God to bring the kingdom to earth. So thanks for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.